Welcome to Her Way. Thank you guys for joining us for another youth, young adult, and adult conversation. This this week is for the ladies, so we will have, you know, different ladies from different walks of life, and we will cover topics that go unspoken about. So first, we would like to welcome Kit Kat.
Hi,
Hey, Kit Kat, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I am from the Detroit area. I'm 23 and I am obsessed with ministry involvement.
Okay, and next we have Caitlyn. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I am almost 32, mother of two, almost three, and I live in the Flint area. I'm a marketing manager with a background in graphic design.
All right. All right, and last but not least, we have Terry. And Terry,
Hi, my
could you
name
tell
is
us
Terry,
about yourself?
and I am a mother of one. I just turned 59 last month, and am a sole proprietor and owner of Food for Your Soul Catering.
All right. All right. Well, thank you, ladies, for joining us. Whew. Let's hope we can get through this meeting and it will be a success. All right. So to start, let's start with women taking on leadership roles and the difficulties that they may face. First, I want to note that, okay, so nobody gets the wrong idea. We're not, going to try to attack any gender, not you guys, but don't want anyone feeling any kind of way. We're not going to attack any gender, any specific group of people. Just, just saying it how it is. So, women in leadership roles and the difficulties that they may face that other people most likely don't face. I'm going to start with Kit Kat.
One of the difficulties that I faced, for example, is an AY leader. I am still new to being an AY leader, but the most irritating thing to put up with that I've had to do, I don't think it really had anything to do with my sex. It was very hard to find someone to open the church because they don't want to, some people don't want to give a key to someone that still looks like a kid. You might not trust them with the key, which is in a way you can understand, but it's really hard to be taken seriously because they think you don't know what you're doing.
Okay. All right. And Caitlyn, what about you?
I work in a corporate environment, so I face this a lot, but I think like a positive spin on it is having female mentors and advocates have been huge for me. Having women who help me deal with day-to-day problems and then just navigating life, being a mother and having a job and all of the many hats that women wear working in our communities. And I think, especially in the last year, women took on a lot of emotional baggage. We were supporting our teachers and our children and our communities, and it was a lot on our plates. And having those role models, whether they be mentors or someone who's advocating for you in your next step in life, and I think it's good to have different people for each one of those, has been big for me in helping me navigate the roadblocks in life.
All right. And Terry?
Well, unfortunately, you sometimes in the church and in certain positions, job positions, you face ageism, the opposite effect. And piggybacking a little bit off of what Kit Kat was saying, even in the food service industries, there's been several places that I've gone to cater to, and if they look at your age, not my age now, but when I started this in the early 2000s. And it's difficult to kind of break through the idea that, oh, well, why would you use this? We've been doing this way for years, and that with that recipe, or this way, cooking it this way. And there's different things, there's different new techniques that you can use, and that could, that's a much quicker method, and it doesn't take as long, but the result is still the same. But it's hard, it's been difficult trying to break through that barrier with that, especially with someone that's been older, and they've done in the industry the things they've done for the past 30 or 40 years, that you can now see that's not really working that well. But then to try to explain that to them at your age, they kind of think, because of your age, well, that's just some new modern idea and it's not going to work. And, you run into that a lot. So, and it's whether it's male or female, if they're sometimes older, you run into that a lot in the industries, certain industries, and as well as even food service, because I'm also a food service director at the church that I belong to. And so I've run into that quite a bit.
Okay. For me, as far as leadership, the highest I've gone is AY assistant, and so I haven't had any difficulties so far. I think Avery protects me from everything else that I don't see involving AY, and like working with him, my voice is heard, and so yeah, I think I got in good with that one. Um, do you ever feel like you were passed up for something that you were really qualified for just because of your gender or even age, like you guys said?
Most definitely.
All
Most
right. Do you want to explain?
well, without going into specific details, yeah, there's several things and several positions and things that I think that as women, regardless of your age, that sometimes we're overlooked, and especially sometimes in the in your religious communities, um, they feel as though I don't know, they feel as though sometimes our input and sometimes our ideas and our methods of doing things is just not as effective as is when men do it, or especially older men sometimes. And so you get passed up, even though you know that you're qualified, and sometimes better qualified than some of the male counterparts that are in the positions that they put in the positions. And you watch how things are deteriorating and just really not working the way that they could be, and not progressing in the way that they could be. But they were not willing to um, sometimes allow you into, for lack of a better term, the good old boys club, in order for you to show, your worth, or how you can show, how things could progress in a different way, and actually, produces something that's viable, to that situation, or to that, yeah, to that position, and even to the church as a whole, or whatever the company is. It's been a very difficult thing trying to break into the good old boys club, because you literally have to prove yourself over and over again, trying to get into certain positions that you're more than qualified for.
Okay. Caitlin?
Yeah, I think beyond positions to ideas, or being heard at the table. So you get a seat at the table and then being heard as a part of it, having the opportunity to talk, and then being taken seriously. I think is definitely where I've seen that happen, whether that's like being talked over, or just not being taken seriously for being a female, or age, or whatever it is in the role.
All right. Kit Kat?
I honestly can say church wise, I am very thankful that I do have people down here that are pro youth. So thankfully, I haven't been passed over. As far as job wise, yes, and it's always been because of my religion specifically. But I feel like that's one of those things where God uses that to test us, in all honesty.
All right. We're gonna skip a little bit. As far as being in church, I want to talk about dress code and what's expected, of women. So, Kit Kat, since you look like you have something to say, I'm gonna let you start.
Okay, so this is live, right? So, okay, so there's been a few times in church. We have fought about this quite a few times. I'm not saying my church specifically, but there's a lot of them that we've had this argument where, sometimes it's not even about what tradition is. I've heard people being kicked out of church for what they were wearing, and it was their first time coming to a church. And then they just didn't feel like they should be there because if they're supposed to dress a certain way to feel accepted, then that's not right. Which, I mean, that is understandable. We shouldn't make people feel that way. But I remember someone had told me that I couldn't have my kids on camera because we live stream if they're not wearing a tie or if it's a girl and they're not wearing a skirt or a dress. And I was like, what? We are talking about teenagers, right? So, not many teenagers want to wear a dress or a skirt. When I had to, my mom and not even my mom, my grandmother forced me. She was old school. She said we could not go to church unless it was a skirt or a dress. I don't think that's the case anymore. And I think we make people feel more comfortable when we leave church, go out into community service, and we're dressed how we would normally dress. It gives off a certain vibe. And I think it's actually better for us to wear t-shirts or even sweatshirts with jeans or dress pants, because if we feel comfortable, we're not so focused on what we're wearing. Because if I'm wearing high heels at church to read a scripture, my feet are going to be killing me, and that's all I'm going to be thinking about rather than listening to a whole sermon. So I think that that's overrated. There's nothing wrong with getting dressed, but I don't think we should have to do it all the time. And we need to acknowledge that not many people can afford to do the same.
Like it shouldn't necessarily be mandatory, long as you're like presentable. Yeah. Okay. Caitlyn.
Yeah, I think this topic often becomes a stumbling block, especially for people new to the church. I know at points even in my life where I was weaker in my faith, feeling judged or going going through moments as like a young 20-year-old and feeling judged, and then using that as a weapon to distance myself from God. And I think the responsibility is on us to make others feel welcome at wherever they're at in their path. And I think, especially being raised in the church, it does feel like a cultural thing that everyone's aware of, but it's not. Everyone comes in at a different point in their journey, and sometimes journeys ebb and flow even when you're raised in the church. And it's important to be mindful of that.
I understand. Oh, okay. Terry.
Well, I'll explain it to you this way. I think that's part of what they call when they talk about in Romans about non-essentials, and I think it's Romans, because here's the thing: the Lord is looking at your heart. He's looking at you. He could care less about what as long as you're not walking in bucket naked. I don't think that's the issue. But unfortunately, you have these people who want to make up their own rules and regulations and then pose them as though they're biblical upon younger people, upon people who are new to the faith. When you do that, you make it kind of almost impossible for a person to think that they'll ever measure up or be good enough to attend your service. Because if I don't dress a certain way all the time, will I be accepted? You know, and that's not right. That's not how the Lord. That's not what the Lord would have us do. There's an evangelist that I introduced my daughter Taryn to about 4 or 5 years ago. His name was Tom Skinner. He came here, when I was a child, and he talked about one of his sermons. He talked about they went him and a group of there were a couple of evangelists, and they went over into, and I'm not sure what denomination or what religious background they went to this other country, and they were trying to minister to these people on the island. They couldn't get past the fact that the women didn't wear bras. They didn't own them. They had never heard of them. And they were not walking around with everything hanging out, but they just didn't wear bras. They couldn't minister to the women because they were so concerned about them not wearing a bra. Now, what sense did that make? Because I read scripture, and I'm not sure whatever women wore back in those days as far as what they were doing, but they were still ministering. That was the point, to minister to them, to take God's word to them where they were at, what they had on. And I think that's where we miss the mark at the churches. We're so concerned. If a person's jeans is going to be, if a person wearing jeans in church is going to distract you and you think it's going to cause you to be lost, you had that problem before the church. So that means you never leave your house because everybody walking is wearing jeans or sweatpants or something. And it's not it. So that's the thing. If that's what's going to cause you to be lost, then I guess you never leave your house, do you? So I don't think it's an issue. I don't think it ever should have been an issue as far as a dress code. If a person feels the need, I'm going to do this for this occasion, I think that's between them and Jesus. I don't ever think it's for us or as a church to decide, because then we're putting ourselves in God's place. And so that's the thing. I know they're saying, come into the house of the Lord and be respectful. Yeah, don't come to the house of the Lord, with a bottle of whiskey in your hand or something like that. I understand that. But as far as a dress, and I've heard people use certain writers' opinions about wearing dresses, but that same writer always also thought it was a sin to have carpet in your house, only because of the fact that because their dresses were so long and they would catch the dust in the carpet. And so that's why they didn't want a carpet in the house. So you have to, stop trying to be God in one perspective in a person's life, because that's not what he asked you to do. He just asked you to show his love. And I think accepting people where they are, what they have on, that's all we need to do. Not focus on what they're wearing. It's not an essential. It's not important.
I understand. Um, so, I think only Terry and a few other people know. I had two friends that would come with me to church. And so, one of my friends, they told me, it was like, I don't know. She's like, are we supposed to dress up? Because she's like, I don't have anything to wear. And of course, I knew her situation. I can't say it on here. But so around that time, my grandparents had actually took me shopping because I didn't own church clothes. I think I owned like one pair of flats. That was it. So my grandparents had took me shopping, and so of course my granddad he was like, "We got you some church clothes. What happened to them?" And I'm trying to make them feel comfortable. Like you don't have to get all fancy to come here. That's not the case, you know. And then I just I got so used to wearing what I'm used to wearing. It is what it is at that point. Um, and then the same thing went for me in school. Schools have their dress codes, and I understand dress code. Yeah, okay, I won't come in here with a beater on. I, that wasn't a problem for me. But my problem was you have this boy right here. No one's saying anything to him, he running around and ripped his shirt off. I'm like, but I will get suspended if I just have my shoulder out, you know? I was like, I'm not for it. Okay. Um, so how do you feel, Kit Kat, a way to kind of step away from that, or teach the young people that you're reaching out to, like, this shouldn't be the problem.
One of the ways that I try to do it, being involved with like Pathfinders or junior camp, we get a crap load of ministry t-shirts. And Avery also, sometimes hook us up with some more t-shirts. So we have a lot of shirts that have stuff that's approved for church. So when I come to church, I don't get dressed up that fancy. Because I know there's a few people that I know that are like out here. They might not know where they're sleeping the next night, or they don't know where some people in their family are. So what we just recently did, we got t-shirts made for our young people. So every youth day we have t-shirts. So they can just come in with that, and then they can just wear jeans or dress pants. And then they don't have to worry about paying for it because we paid for it. And I actually had them vote on the shirt, so then they actually like what they're wearing. And it went pretty well. They were really happy to have their shirts, and even more kids were asking for a pair. So I feel like as long the t-shirt, for one, gets rid of the stress about picking an outfit and worrying about what to wear, and then it also make you feel like you're part of a team because everyone's wearing the same thing. So then we're not so focused on what you're wearing. We're just, even though I'm not gonna lie, some of the young people, especially the boys, like to compete on gym shoes. Like, I'm cheap, I'm Converse all the way, but that's their thing. That's not mine. But that's the way that we usually do it with the kids. So then they feel comfortable being there, and when they feel comfortable, they're willing to participate more. Sometimes even bring more people with them. We had a pretty good turnout this last youth Sabbath. So that's how we usually do it. And then I ask them if they want to make another shirt, or sometimes I let them pick the color. But I think they really just want to stick to the t-shirts. So that's what we did. And then camp, we try to get the kids to understand they don't have to dress up for camp. And then, who wants to dress up at camp? It's raining, there's gravel.
The weather is different every hour.
And if you ever go to camp meeting, there's gravel towards the DYC. So if you walk back there, it doesn't matter what shoes you're wearing. If you're wearing sandals or gym shoes, if you're wearing sandals, your feet about to look ashy by the time you reach them steps.
You know what? Kit Kat was right. Back in the day, going to campground, I broke so many heels of my shoes on those stupid gravel roads. And yes, I don't care she's right. You, out of whatever shoes you had on, she's right. I broke so many heels on shoes trying to walk on those gravel roads, and if it's rain, you're gonna sink. So you're coming back with a foot full of mud.
Oh, okay. So Caitlyn and Terry, do you feel there's anything that we could do, to improve this at Fairhaven?
Yeah, I think as a parent, it starts with making sure that your faith is grounded in the right things. Because I think the clothing issue could have many different faces. It could be a food issue. It could be whatever that people are focusing on that's not the right thing. And especially for youths who haven't experienced as much life, I think those things can become stumbling blocks. So making sure that their faith is grounded in something that's not going to change throughout their life, and not worrying about the noise that sometimes can come with religion, but focusing on faith, I think, is key. As a parent, and as a part, a member of a community.
I think that I agree wholeheartedly with Caitlyn just said, because here's the thing: there's so many there's so many real issues and real things that young adults are dealing with, and young people are dealing with. Dress should not be one of them, especially if you're coming into the house of the Lord, where you come for your safe space. That should be a safe space from A to Z, from 1 to 100, not with all these stipulations. Nobody's sitting in the, no, what they're wearing is that's the least of their worries. I know back in the day when I was in high school, there were kids who would drop out of school because they couldn't compete with others with the way people were dressing. And they felt so self-conscious because they felt their clothes weren't good enough. Because that's when everybody was dropping all the little designer labels, the Calvin Klein and all this stuff like that. And so some of the girls felt they couldn't compete. They wouldn't come. It's the same thing at church. You have so much peer pressure out in the world that when you walk through those doors, it should be a sigh of relief, a safe space, regardless of what you have on. Not when you walk through the door, somebody pull you aside. Well, I know, you don't know what that child or what that young adult or what that adult has been going through all week. And for them to step in and someone to pull them aside and say, well, look, put this sweater on because, your shoulders, too much of your shoulders are coming out. I attended a school. I know this sounds crazy, and I'm going to say it now before I even bring it up, but this is going to sound really crazy. I'm just telling y'all right off the bat, this is going to sound really cray-cray, okay? But in school, when we were attending school, and if you wore a dress and if you wore sandals, you had to wear stockings with your sandals. Okay. The reason why, okay, drum roll, get ready for the crazy, because they said if boys saw your toes and they weren't covered in the stocking, it would make them think of babies. Go figure. Still trying to figure that one out. And if they thought of babies, then it would make them think of where babies came from and how they were made. Isn't that some crazy stuff? That's some crazy stuff, man. That's some crazy stuff. And this is like you could not wear sandals and not wear stockings. Because if the boys saw your toes, all of a sudden they were horny. They were horny from the toes. I don't know why. Maybe that's where horny toe environment came from back in the South. I don't know, but that's what we were told. And that was the craziest stuff I've ever heard of in my life. Every time I wear sandals, I think about that. I had to get out of that habit, mind you, thinking just out of habit, but yeah. And it had nothing to do. It had nothing to do with salvation. As a matter of fact, none of this has anything to do with person's salvation. If somebody's looking for something, to be griping about, maybe they'll find any little thing. And young adults and young people have so much to deal with that we never did. That I think them come to church with a pair of jeans on, even if it's sweatpants, and if that's all they have, they might come to, if that's all they have, they might go back home to, a refrigerator that's empty or no lights on. But they're coming someplace with some kind of relief, and this is what they come to. What I have on? Really? No, the church has to change that. The church must change that. Because here's the thing. If you continue to run them off or make them feel like they're not important or less than because of something as simple as dress, when all the people who run them off are dead and gone, who's going to be left? They're not going to feel safe or comfortable to come back now after all the abuse that they, endured just trying to come there because of a pair of jeans that had a hole or a rip in it or a t-shirt or something. See, yeah, the church has to address it. It has to change it.
I just have to say that I am very sassy. If they would have told me I had to wear tights with sandals and it's like 100 degrees outside, I'm like, nah, you better duct tape some boys' eyes closed because it's too hot for that. Oh my goodness. I am so sorry.
Yeah. The sandals, the toes out made you, it made boys think babies. And I to this day, I've never figured out where they got that from to this day. And I've heard everybody, I've been attacked with Ellen G. White writings and stuff like that all my life. And I never heard that one from her though. And I've never seen it anywhere in the Bible. I was thinking, toes, babies, what in the world? did that come from? But yeah, so yeah, you better put those stockings on with those sandals, because if you don't, these boys can go to jail over those toes. So
When you said stockings, I thought you was about to say something about some ankles, not some toes.
your toes. So yeah, we've been dealing with the crazies for a while with that. So
Um, okay, so will any of you say, growing up you had a lot of female role models who basically taught you not to be naive going into the world, or did you sort of have to figure that out on your own?
My mama was blunt, and my grandmothers were like, "Look, this is how it is. Be ready for that. Don't be a punk." Basically, so I knew what it was. I just wasn't ready to process the racism part. You see it, but when it really happened to you in real life, you're like, "Did that really just happen?" I gotta think. Like, wait a minute, am I dreaming? Did that really just happen?
Okay, Caitlyn?
Yeah, I think that lots of conversations were had, whether it was, I wasn't raised Adventist, so whether it was Sunday school or in youth group, things like that. I still don't think I was ready. And I think, well, for example, I think I was raised in purity culture. I got married very young. I got married when I was 18. And I think with some of that messaging, it's put more on women than men. A lot of the responsibility is put solely on females. And then I get married as a child, pretty much. I just turned 18, and the responsibility was on me to all of a sudden have a mind shift in what's okay and all of us, I think that a lot of that was good intentioned, but I didn't so much have someone there in my young adulthood to kind of guide beyond that stage. So, we had conversations about dating in the world, but once I got married and roles kind of shifted and I was in college, I don't think I was prepared for that. I don't think, a lot of the youth groups and things was in was focused around high school and the things that high schoolers are dealing with. And college is different. So I think I did, but maybe not for my 20s and my 30s and the life challenges that come in those stages.
Oh, okay. Terry?
well, I come from a large family of mostly women, and so there were like 10 women I can name in particular that gave me a lot of advice growing up. My mom was number one. My oldest sister was number two, and then my aunts and the rest of my sisters came into play, and I got a lot of advice about how to navigate through the world and at certain ages. And because I'm out of 7 girls, I'm the second to the youngest. So all the older ones, there was always advice, and even if it wasn't physical sit down talk with you advice, it was visual advice. You would see things that that they would go through at certain stages in life, when they were in college, when they got married, when they had kids and things like that. So that played a role into who I am today. Actually, one of my biggest mentors was my mom's sister, and she the reason why I was so interested in doing catering and the cooking is because she there's in bigger cities, there was a place called Pullman's Bank, and they had corporate cafeterias and things like that. And so she was the director for Pullman Banks Corporation, which is a huge bank in Chicago, Illinois. and that she mentored me with that. And so, like I said, there's so many there's so many women in our family, and then then there's 7 girls in my immediate family. So yeah, there are quite a few women, and then there's one particular woman in our church today that's present today, that knew me as a child, and that she mentored to me quite a bit, and I really appreciate. And it was Gloria McCoy Jacobs. It's Gloria McCoy Jacobs. Um, they the advice that they gave me growing up, it helped me as far as relationship with others, relationships in school and things like that. So yeah, there were quite a few women who that gave me advice, because that's we were, like I said, large family made up mostly of women, and then there the as quiet as it's kept, a lot of women are the backbone of the churches that don't get credit for it. But yeah, so yeah, there are quite a few.
Um, I would say I had a lot of women in my life, but no one like sat me down to have conversations with me on certain topics. Um, but I saw them grow through things that were basically examples of what not to do. And then, like, as far as my parents, my mom taught me the basics of taking care of myself because she was a single mom handling everything. So, as far as cooking, cleaning, all the basics I need to make sure that I'm, good, she taught me that. But I would say what no one prepared me for was dating.
Mm.
And I was just like, my dad, he would always say, like, I think he offered me some cookies before, and they were lemon. I'm like, I can't eat that. I'm allergic to lemon. And he's like, that sounds crazy. You ain't allergic to lemon. You allergic to boys. I'm, and this is not just the typical dad. Oh, you can't date till you're 30 kind of thing. No, he was serious. He is so serious, and I'm just like, oh goodness. And so it was like if I was around a male that wasn't my family member, he's lecturing me like, "Oh no, you can't have no boyfriend or any of that." If I hang around girls, he's lecturing me like, I don't play that." My dad's homophobic and he doesn't admit to it, but he's like, "Oh no, I don't play that. I don't ain't with the sleepovers and stuff." So if I stay in my room, he would say, "I feel like you want to be in the penitentiary. You all locked up in here."
You couldn't win.
I'm like, dude. So of course he's like, I don't want to hear about a boyfriend until I see a diploma or whatnot. But for me, that's like I'm not trying to wait until I'm an adult having so many responsibilities, but also going through all these different relationship issues because no one has told me, a guy's gonna walk up to you and he's gonna be trying to spit game, you know, and that's all it's gonna be. It's gonna be talk. It's gonna be talk. Don't fall for it, you know. So a lot of that I actually learned. I learned a lot from school and church because those are the only two places that I was besides at home. So I was not prepared, but I figured it out somehow.
You're not prepared for dating.
I wasn't.
I don't think I don't. You know what? To be honest with you, I don't think you see aunts and cousins and sisters, and sometimes if your mom is a single mom and she's still dating and then she's dating, you see a lot of do's and don'ts and things that you realize, no, I would never do that, or I would never,
Yeah,
no, I would never date a guy like that, or no, I couldn't be with that person. And you see that, and so I think that kind of it doesn't say necessarily prepare you, because everybody's situation is different, but it does give you kind of an idea. And
yeah,
then, as young adults and as teenagers growing up, you're still trying to find your way. You're trying to find who you are, and you're still trying to figure out your own personality, and then you meet another personality, and they're not as sure of themselves as they try to make themselves, but because I'm not saying it's right, but that's just the way the world is. The world always makes it seem as though the men and young men have all the power and they have all the ideas and they have so you kind of try to, unfortunately, we've been, for lack of a better term, brainwashed as to trying to conform to what we think they should want us to be. And that's how sometimes you get in trouble, because you're not trying to be yourself, but you're trying to be, you don't know who yourself is yet at that point, but you're trying to figure out who you are. But then when you're a little too young, you're trying to take on the role of somebody else because you're trying to figure out what they want you to be, even though you haven't figured out who you are yet. And
Right.
so I think that's where a lot of times as women and as young women and as teenagers, we get in problems because you have so many images on TV, you have so many images in movies, and then you'll see somebody at school or you'll see somebody at church, or you see, like, man, they seem to have it all together, everybody seems to like them, or and maybe it's because of their hair or the way they dress, or who their mom or dad is or something like that. And so you're trying to figure out, man, if I could just be like them. And then if you see certain guys that you might like or whatever talking with them, you're thinking, oh, so that's how I have to act, or this is who I should be like in order for them to give me conversation, talk to me. And so the thing is, you're just pulled in so many different directions. So there's the the only thing you can, and it's hard to navigate because you see so many different examples and you don't know which one is right for you, rather than just, and it's hard trying to figure out that, I'm just who I am. And if they're going to like me, they're going to like me for me, for who I am and what I like and what I'm into. And a lot of times, if the person is really, the guy's really about something, if you could just have the conversation with them first, because become friends with them first and figure out, oh, well, we do have that in common, or, we don't have that in common. But I could be interested. That sounds interesting, but it's hard to navigate. It's a hard call because it's hard to navigate. Because listen, and I'm saying young adult and young women. I know some women in 50 and 60s, and some of them that are 70 years old that still don't know who they are. Real talk. They still don't know who they are, what they want to be. And the sad part of it is that they're married and still don't know who they are. And they're still trying to be everything for everybody else, but they never knew who they were for themselves because unfortunately they were trying to find their identity in a man or a job or a position. And the truth of it is, um, if you find your identity in Christ first, then he'll help you figure out the rest, even at a young age. That's the issue. You have to find your identity in Christ first. Then he'll help everything else fall into place as far as who you are and who he'll bring into your life. And we always, unfortunately, we grow up in households and or we're around people who are always trying to please everybody else and please the guy first and please this person first and please this job first and do this first. And we never have time for ourselves in Christ. And so then, because we never have time for ourselves in Christ, and we're trying to, pew, pew, pew in every different direction for everybody else, we never can figure out who we are. And so it's really difficult to navigate at that point. But if you find out who you are first in Christ, the rest of it, he'll bring it, he'll bring it a full circle around to what you need to be doing and who you need to be doing it with. So.
Okay. And I want to say, you guys, this is an open conversation. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. Um, okay. So what I want to talk about next is ladies being seen as prostitutes or, objects. Like, what's your stance on that? We're going to start with Caitlyn. As far as, clothing or the way they might act, that's not the expectation of how someone feels they should act.
Caitlyn or Kit Kat. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said Caitlyn.
I didn't know she said
She
Kate,
did.
so I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that leads in really well from what Terry said, because I think messaging to boys versus girls in the church can differ. And we're often, or at least I was raised with the messaging of like a Proverbs 31 woman, and the focus being all things for other people. You know, your focus is, what am I doing for my family? What am I doing for my husband, my house? And it's not finding your identity. I think often it's pivoting from focusing on Christ to focusing on your community, which isn't a bad thing, but Christ should be first.
Yeah.
You know, so it's, in action, it may feel like what I'm doing is honorable, but there's a lot of loss in purpose and self when our role is just to be there for other people, and not grounding ourselves in Christ every day. I think for me, being a mom of two young ones, and we have a puppy, and I'm pregnant, my focus daily has been on starting with God, because blessings can feel like burdens on some days, and I can feel like by 8 a.m. I'm already not a nice mom, and I'm already like, ah, and that's not the purpose of why I'm their mom. And by stripping away some of the things that maybe societally I feel like I have to do, or Proverbs 31 woman type messaging that I have to do, and focusing on God first and what is my role in their lives, and getting right at the beginning of the day has helped tremendously, because otherwise I can feel out of control before breakfast. And absolutely, I think often we wear, you name some certain names, we play those roles in other people's lives around us, rather than being ourselves first and focusing on God first.
Okay, Kit Kat, do you have anything you would like to input?
When I was younger, I actually thought about marriage probably more than what I should have, but but I just wanted to do everything how I was told it was supposed to be, right? And so I wouldn't date someone if they weren't the same religion as me, if they didn't believe in God. Once I heard you don't believe in God, that's it right there. It ended right there. And some people were saying that I was picky because I shouldn't be focused on that right now. I'm like, well, if I date, it's not to waste time. Because nowadays we don't know how long we live. So I'm not about to waste my time on something that's not worth my time. And one of the things that most people are taught, especially women, is that, okay, so you go from your parents' house, even though it's not like that anymore, you go from your parents' house to you and your husband's house, then you have kids, and then you're supposed to do a career, and you're supposed to have kids, and you're supposed to do this. And it's like, okay, I'm one person. I think you're kind of demanding a bit too much, because I don't think every single woman should have to do everything that other women do. If you want to be a stay-at-home mother, there's no shame in that. If you want to have your own career and be a stay-at-home mother, there's no shame in that. If you just want to do your career and don't be at home, there's no shame in that. Everybody's different. Like, I would rather be a stay-at-home mom if I could, because I love kids and I prefer to, work at home with kids when I have kids and run ministries. But I would only do that if I'm financially stable. Otherwise, you got to do what you got to do. And sometimes they don't really teach us that, or teaching us how to work with whatever we got so we can improve our situation, which is one of the things that I think that they should teach us that, because sometimes they tend to teach that to boys as if we're not supposed to go off and have our own thing before we get married. And I feel like that's one of the issues that we don't really talk about that's kind of in the room, especially when you get to a certain age and you can't use your final your final years where you get older, you can't use your parents' information for your financial aid. You got to do it. And then they also don't talk about financial aid, because I tried to fill out financial aid. I did not know what I was doing. I didn't understand that form at all. And they don't teach us any of that stuff, because even though we've come so far, it seems like they're not trying to help us get into a better place.
I would say some issues that I've seen, not necessarily in this church, but I'd be on the internet and I stay away from the comment section because the comment section can infuriate you. It was a young lady. This is down in the South like a few months ago, and she went to homecoming. So of course she posted the pictures with her and her date. You know, it wasn't anything inappropriate about the photo. She had on a black dress. She was covered. It met school dress code and everything. You have people in the comment section, and then they're bringing God into the situation. It's like, this is not God. This is you. Attacking her, because they're like, oh, now, what's a man supposed to think? Now, I wouldn't be surprised if something happened to her, and what she has on, she's asking for it, and it's like, no, no. And it's like you're giving people the wrong, you know, what's the word to use? The wrong idea about Christians, because you want to find a way to put God or Jesus into. You want to use God to try to prove your point when your point is not, it's not a point. It's like things happen to women when they were fully covered, like a Muslim woman. They show no skin whatsoever. The most you will see is their hands and maybe their face. Some only show eyes. It's like things even happen to these women. So it's not the way she's dressed that these things are happening to them. It's the person who is doing these things. Like why are you attacking this girl? And there was like another video. It was a lady. She was just standing. And, people do TikTok nowadays. She was just standing, and a man came up and started dancing on her. And you have people in the comments saying, "Oh, it was just a joke. You can't take a joke." But the thing is, no one has a right to your body. So he should not have came up to her, touched her, did anything without her consent. Consent is a big thing. It's like, it's not your right to do these things. And for people to try to defend certain things, and it's just like, no, no.
I agree with you, Rashonda, with that. There's a, it's unfortunate that, if you pay attention to, say, the entertainment industry and say the movie, particularly movies, in the 60s, it was a very strange era with movies. They called it the sexual revolution. And every movie depicted some man being sexually inappropriate with a woman. And it wasn't like direct, like rape or anything like that, which is a violent act toward anyone, male or female. But a woman was in the office, and it was always a scene where her boss was chasing her around her desk and having him sit on his lap and take letters and things like that. And unfortunately, that's the way the world has depicted women for years, is to be sexual objects rather than just being a human being, an equal. And it's so sad that, for lack of a better term, women drank the Kool-Aid. Women drank the Kool-Aid. And so now, because that's the way the industry or the world has shown women to be, they're what they feel this is what they have to be, overly sexual to be accepted. And that's not true. At some point in time, you got to stop stripping. And what I mean for that, stop being a stripper. And what I mean by that is this: I'm not talking about the ones who swing on the poles. A stripper is anything that's going to strip your identity in Christ. What is that that's stripping your identity in Christ for who you really are? Stop being a strip. Stop letting somebody strip you, and don't be a stripper. Don't let. That's the thing. You need to be who Christ has called you to be. And so, just because it's you see the Cardi B's and everybody else, and they're walking around and they make songs about their sexuality. Most of the videos are about their sexuality, and it's their sexuality, their sexuality, their sexuality. And so, at a young age, this is what most of the girls see. And so that's what they think, that this is how they have to behave and this is how they have to act. And then they want to be appalled or upset if somebody makes a comment on the way that they're acting and the way they're behaving, or even if, where they're dressing or whatever and stuff like that. Because some of the outfits are just, you just call it what it is. It's just not appropriate for anybody. But that's the thing. But unfortunately, as we get closer and closer and closer to, because we are in the end times, it's letting you know, well, it's okay to be that. It's okay to dress like that. But would you dress your daughter that way? Really? Would somebody with a little girl dress her in some of the outfits that you've seen? You wouldn't do it. You think it would be inappropriate. And that's the point that I'm making, is this. You have to determine for who yourself. Because first of all, God created sexuality. He created sex. He didn't, and humans took it and turned it into something dirty, which it wasn't meant to be. And so that's where the issue lies, as far as what's appropriate for dress and things like that, because we took it and turned it away from what God would have it to be, or what he originally meant for it to be, within this world. And so with that being said, yeah, if regardless of the age of the woman, because it's like this, you view it for what it is. You can see sin for what it is, and that's what you have to ask God. Is it's just like we're talking in this conversation, that's the same way you should talk with God about, was this something that you think that I should be a part of, or something that I should pick out, or something I should do? If you have that intimate relationship with God, you'll know exactly what it is. You'll see it for what it is, and you can avoid it. And therefore you won't be, because here's the thing. Everything that you do should not be posted online. Everything that you wear should not be posted online. Every place that you go should not be posted online. Because here's the thing. If you put it out there, then you're going to have the comments. Whether they're good, bad, whether they agree with you, whether they disagree with you, whether they're insulting you, whether they're complimenting you. And,
Right.
Real talk is you're trying to get the compliments. You're not trying to get the things that disagree with you, where most people are. So you have to pick and choose. You have to realize what you're doing. Most people put stuff like that on there for attention, and they want compliments. They want that attention. And unfortunately, with that attention, you can get the good, bad, and the indifferent attention that you're getting from those putting, all the pictures out there all the time. You might think it's just a cute dress, but you can have somebody on there that's going to see different. And so my thing is, just don't do it. Just don't put it on there, and you don't have to worry about the comments that's coming back. But you also have to realize, though, when you put that on there, what are you trying to gain? What attention are you getting? Is it going to be positive or negative? Is it going to be over sexual, or is it going to be insulting? And no man has a right to aggressively pursue some woman sexually, especially no, that's not right. It's not the right thing to do, because the question that you asked was, what do you think about the world seeing women as prostitutes or sexual objects? And and unfortunately, that's something that started way back. And the world doesn't have a problem with it, but we should.
I was in a store one time, and it was, in my opinion, I think this is ridiculous that we've gotten, I'm glad that women are now getting more respect, but it's come to the point where a guy had to come up to me and ask me for permission to give me a compliment, which I thought was kind of weird. And I'm like, are we really at the point where I have to give someone permission to say I have a nice outfit or that my hair looks nice? Are we really doing that right now? I think that's a bit too far. We should still, as long as it's not an inappropriate comment, as long as if they're saying oh yeah, your hair looks nice, I don't think they should have to ask you permission for that.
Right.
And I know that they're trying to show respect, but I think we're taking it too far. Just like certain cancel culture situations where we're like, okay, maybe we're taking this a bit too far. Maybe we're overreacting just a little bit, because everybody's going through some terrible things in life, especially during COVID, after COVID. I'm pretty sure a lot of people are more depressed if they were already, have anxiety. We don't know what everybody's going through, but I'm pretty sure if everyone heard one compliment a day, that would probably make their day feel twice as better than it was in the beginning, because anything that someone says that's nice to you can make you feel better. No matter what you're going through, it feels good to hear something nice.
I understand.
But I understand that too. But you have some people that's their sole purpose is for somebody to constantly compliment them and
Oh,
somebody constantly tell them. There's some people who they're addicted to that, and they're constantly posting something or trying to get the attention of others just to hear that all the time. And that's an issue, because if when they don't hear it, then they go to different lengths to make sure they hear it. And so you have to realize, there has to be a balance, in other words, of that. Because I don't think it's anything wrong with paying anybody a compliment. I've been in stores and I've walked past gentlemen, and they smell really nice, and I'll let them know, hey, you know what? That is a really nice smelling cologne. What is that? Because I'd like to purchase that for my husband. I've done that before. I don't. That's not an issue. I don't think they took it as, well, here now let me give you my number, because no. Same thing with women, and I'm not interested in women, but I would, that's really nice perfume that you're wearing. What is that? It's okay to compliment people, but even the Bible says, let your compliments be genuine and from the heart, not just flattery because something to gain some type of attention for yourself, but it has to be genuine from the heart.
Oh, I agree 100% with you. I was just talking
Yeah.
about something like separate when they were talking about on TikTok. This girl was offended because this dude said the shoes that she had were really cool, and I'm just like, okay, you guys are taking this too far. You just said you have nice shoes. Like, why you got to trip about shoes? You didn't say they were ugly. Why are you offended?
Right. Something different. Okay. So I would say what we need to do, as a church, as a people, is teach, people to work on or learn God for yourself. Don't look to other people, to teach you about God, because there's always other motives in that, I feel. So it's like when you get to know him for yourself, then that's when you will be able to like have conversations like this where it's like, oh, nobody's tarnishing God's image for you. Like I can talk to you without, walking away from the conversation being like, well, if that's how God is, then I don't want anything to do with that, because this person is not God, you know. It's another person just like you. They have their own issues. But okay, moving on from that, because we have about 10 minutes left. I don't know if everyone watches the news. I know I don't watch the news, but I still see stuff. So, Vice President Kamala Harris, do you feel like she's getting a lot of heat, for being a woman, in office or in a leadership role? For the most part, I believe I've been seeing a lot of more women, you know, women talk about her when they be on the news channel. For the most part, when I would see the news cover, presidents before, I normally didn't see too many women. But now I see a lot of women stepping out to, talk about Kamala Harris. Anyone
Um,
have anything to say about that?
I don't really watch the news either. I stopped watching the news when Trump was in office, if I'm gonna be honest with you. Because I was just like, okay, I feel like I'm just watching a really stupid TV show at this point. But
Don't blame me.
I do know what you're talking about. I always post it on social media. I'm about this close to deleting all of social media because I'm getting real fed up with all of this. And I think, honestly, some women might just be like religious wise, certain people didn't approve of them for specific reasons, and they might just be criticizing just because of that. Or it would be the reason because that she is a woman and that she does have multiple races in her. It's a lot of reasons. We have so much hate in this country that even though we speak on it, nothing, sadly, maybe we just have to face that sometimes it might not change because those people are just so into their ways.
I think that Kamala Harris, I think that the press coverage they give her, a lot of it, I think 60% of it is unfair, and the other 40% is okay, because here's the fact that, yes, she relates to different races besides just being African American, and the first thing they're going to see that first before they see any of her accomplishments, anything that she's done, or her track record. The first thing they're going to see, unfortunately, is her race. And that's just the world that we live in. And they're going to base just anything that she does, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, it's just going to be based strictly upon her race, face value. That's what it is. She's never going to be able to do anything right or correct. Same thing they did with Obama. And the same thing, certain people did the same thing with Donald Trump. They're not going to, because of he was, this Z-list celebrity. They gave him too much credit. Um, and I say Z-list because that's not even a list. That he wanted to be a celebrity, and they gave him too much credit. Like they're still giving him the attention and credit now that he doesn't deserve. He never has. But it's going to be based strictly upon her race. They're not going to take her seriously or take any of her accomplishments or anything she does. They're going to constantly going to be in the media opposing her strictly because of her race, and second, because she's a woman. And that's just the unfortunate, the sinful world, just what she was saying, Kike was saying, that we live in. It's, those are the two main strikes against her. And as far as they can see, is it right? No. Is it fair? No, it's not. This is how they're going to view her strictly first. They're going to see this Black woman. That's all they're going to say. That's all they're going to see. That's all their insults are going to be. That's all, everything that's discriminated against her is going to be based on those two factors. They'll never get past that. They won't get past it because they don't. This is a sin-sick world that we live in. And so anything that she does, she could, discover a cure for cancer. They would never, they still could care less. Because some of them would use it for their family members to cure their cancer. But the thing is, they're going to say, well, who's that company that Black lady used to help cure cancer? It's unfortunate that's what they're going to say and say it. That's how they're going to view it. They're not going to say, Kamala Harris, this lady came in, she found this cure for cancer. It's worked. It's made a difference in the world. She's saving lives. That's not how they're going to say it or view it. And so it's unfortunate that that's how she's viewed in this world. And the media will cover her that way. President Biden's wife, she's a physician, but they're upset, why is she still using the term doctor? Well, because she went to school and she earned it, and they're going to see. So it's even if you just set the race aside, it's just that she's a woman. She's earned a degree, a doctor's degree, and that's why she can refer to herself as Dr. Biden. And they won't accept that. It was a huge debate about that in the media, about her calling herself a doctor. She's a doctor. She earned it. That's Rashawn, if you went to school and you became a dentist, and then you happen to marry somebody who's the president of the United States, would you be less of a dentist because of the fact that your husband is now the president of the United States? No, you're still Dr. Rashonda Jones or whoever your husband may, but the world won't view it as that. They because you're now this man's wife, who's the president. They want to take that identity away from you, from what you went to school and the degree that you earned. And it's just not right in the society. That's how they view it. So Kamala Harris, I watch the news. Sometimes I don't. I have to turn it off because it begins it desensitizes to you to certain things and certain matters. So you have to like unplug from it because you have to have some type of normalcy about your day or your week. But unfortunately, they're going to just they're never going to see past her being a black woman. That's what they're going to view. None of her accomplishments. That she's the vice president of the United States. That's never going to matter to them. Certain people. There are certain people, and she's now paving the road for other people to step into not just those type of leadership roles, which are normally dominated by men, but for other people, other women as well that are now in, doing things, corporations and CEOs and someday president, hint hint, and so so things like that. But yeah, but in the media, yeah, they're not going to. They won't give her a fair shake. It's just the world we live in. It's just the sin sick world that we live in.
Okay. And Caitlyn, did you catch the question?
No. Oh, wait.
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. No, I came in late. Sorry.
It was about if you see Kamala Harris and some of the basically trials that she faces simply for taking on that leadership role.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm wearing her shirt, so it was a Taryn shirt, but I was very excited to see her get it voted in. For myself, for my daughters, to have someone that looks like them in a power position. That's so rare, even at like the school level, to have teachers and mentors that look like my daughters, with various different backgrounds, right? Like that's the other too that gets criticized is like you have to follow this certain path or you won't be accepted. So I love having that representation in the White House. I love that at a local level, we just voted in a lot of women. And you already are seeing some of that, the name calling that women get, or some of the conversation we had earlier, the disregard to their thoughts, because they are women. But that kind of representation matters, and I love seeing it, and I hope that it continues.
Oh, okay. Well, that brings us to the end of this. I want to thank you, ladies, for joining, giving, I'm sorry. I want to thank you for joining, and giving your input. It is very much appreciated. We hope that we can have you back on whatever our next AY is. I believe what we will be trying to cover in. Can you talk about it? Well, Avery's gonna tell you what we're trying to cover in December.
What does the man have to do it? No, I'm just joking. I'm just shooting you the breeze.
All right. So once again, we appreciate you guys. We hope to see you later. Well, you have a blessed day.
You too. Bye-bye.
All right, so we want to thank all of you guys for tuning in for Her Way, because today it was about the ladies, by the ladies, run completely by the ladies. I had no input or anything in it. So for all those who like to donate to AY, we wanted to tell you all you need to do is you need to you can mail in to Fairhaven SDA Church at P.O. Box 186, Flint, Michigan 4 E8502. Or you can drop it off every Saturday from 3 to 5, but I think that'll be changing because we'll be opening up the church this coming Sabbath. And then you can also cash app us at $FairSDA. And put in the memo, just put AYS. So again, we want to thank all of you ladies who join and participate, and we hope that you will come back because we will have Her Way again next year. Now, this December, we're talking about a deep topic, and Kik had kind of mentioned this topic when she was talking in the group, and it's cancel culture. So I'll be bringing a couple great friends. Sandra King will be joining me. Zakia Jarrett will be joining me. Rashonda will be here as well. And we have a couple other guests that we're bringing on. But we're going to talk about cancel culture in the world and also cancel culture that's happening in the churches. So we hope you will tune in. That will be the second Saturday of December. So get ready for it. Prepare for it. And we hope to see you all then. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And we will see you next time.